Hola, ¿cómo estás?
¿Cómo está?
I'm telling you ¿cómo estás because, you know, we might all be speaking Spanish in a little bit. And why? Because we're talking about Puerto Rico. Okay? Puerto Rico. Yes. The jurisdiction has just decided in the last month to reduce the tax rate to as low as 4%. For those who want to set up their business operations and become residents there. We think this is going to have an event with some huge implications, and I would like to ask you, Jeff, we are looking at a deal that the Puerto Rican government has set up with Americans or green card holders that would like to become residents of Puerto Rico. And if they become residents of Puerto Rico and they structure their business operations in Puerto Rico, we're looking at a 4% tax rate locked in until 2035. There's a written agreement, and no matter what happens on the U.S. mainland with perhaps increasing taxes from future administrations and this and that, not only on the federal level but on the state and the local level, Puerto Rico has decided to lock in people's tax rates. Is this the next big gold rush for those people who are looking for lower capital gains taxes, lower business expenses, and just a way so that people are, do you think that there's going to be a big rush towards Puerto Rico?
I think could be, because you know when it comes to Puerto Rico for Taiwanese, we think about baseball.
Think about baseball?
Okay.
Okay.
Our baseball beaten or we beat them.
Okay.
Team. So I think that's the Taiwanese know about Puerto Rico.
So that's
the first.
So that's the idea that you guys have when you think of Puerto Rico.
Yes.
You don't think of Puerto Rico as some investment powerhouse, something like Cayman Islands or Singapore or something like that.
No. Or just we know Puerto Rico could be a tourist place. We can visit or we have it. Holidays there.
Okay.
But I think for some people or Taiwanese who cannot speak very good English, that could be an option.
Okay.
If they want to immigrate eventually to the United States.
So
I think that could be the midway for potential.
So you're talking about
immigrants.
Puerto Rico to be an initial destination for more wealthy, well-to-do immigrants that want to take advantage of lower tax rates and still be in the U.S. and be able to travel to and from the U.S. and so on and so forth. Really?
Yeah.
So we could be looking at a quite big Chinatown starting up in San Juan, huh?
So I think they're gonna be the Puerto Rico version of Chinatown.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think for the small island like BVI, there's no Chinatown over there. So I think could be, but I think
very interesting.
Yes.
So what about, you know, you're a tax expert, you should be able to see, you know, the pros and cons of something like this. As far as what I can see, you know, there's a 4% tax rate, it's locked in until 2035. It seems like just a totally great deal, but there's got to be a flip side of things. I mean, where's the balance? Where do you see that there are challenges with this? Or, you know, is it really a no strings attached kind of deal?
I think some of Taiwanese immigrant to South or Central America, they're doing fishing or they doing some farming, so they doing the international trade from South America to the United States or Canada. I think maybe they can ship or they relocate their hub to Puerto Rico. I think that's kind of from the geography perspective and for the logistic perspective. I think that may be the good choice for Taiwanese who live in South or Central America.
Interesting.
I think that's the first come to in my mind. And second, I think for some Taiwanese who wanna have more laid back life, they could choose Puerto Rico as the immigrant place, and then eventually move to United States as a destination.
Sure.
So I think that's some opportunity or potential for Puerto Rico being the hub spot for Taiwanese immigrants.
Interesting. And so we're looking at Puerto Rico potentially being very filled very quickly.
But in terms of the taxation, I think perhaps that's the place you can doing your investment there because the lower tax rate. But I think for some people particular the wealthy people, they think about the audit by U.S. government. I think they will think about if the Puerto Rico will be a safe place for them to
safety
to put their
concerns.
money. Yeah, because
safety concerns put their money.
That
You think that their money might be at risk in Puerto Rico in some way?
Yeah, because Puerto Rico is part of United States, so I think United States is very aggressive to check or to find out where the wealthy people put their money. So I don't think that will attract a lot wealthy people to park their money.
So are some people going to think of this as sort of like a roach motel, where it's like, come on in, and then once you're trying to leave, the financial regulations and constraints will be so big it'll be hard to operate somehow? Because I know that there is in Asia a desire to keep people's own money rather safe and rather away from too much government intervention and things like that. And what your concern would be is that the federal arm of the U.S. would come down upon Puerto Rico, maybe the next FATCA law or some other sort of financial tax enforcement, and that would you say that might level it off? Because to my understanding, Puerto Rico, for right now anyways, enjoys the policy independence to create one of these laws as it sees fit, and because that it is, I do see what you're getting at though. You're saying that it may be only a matter of time before Washington D.C. forces
because
Puerto
even
Rico
though
to
Switzerland that was forced by the United States, so not mention the Puerto Rico is part of the United States, then how come they can defend or they can stay away the arm of the United States federal government?
So you're saying that to keep in mind that even though it's a better jurisdiction than the other states in the U.S., it's still the U.S., and if the federal government wants to crack down on that, and a couple of years later, it could very well do so, and it would certainly have the power to do so.
Yeah, but I think that's also the advantage for the Puerto Rico, because I think that some of the Taiwanese government money or the Chinese government money, if they wanna invest or they wanna put some money out of the United States land, I think they can pick up Puerto Rico as the place where they can put their money there, because due to the low tax rate cost. And I think for some good businessmen, if their source of money is clean, I think they have no issue. I think that would be put them on there. I think that's the kind of advantage for Puerto Rico.
I think that would be the distinguishing factor. If the money's clean, there should be no problem keeping it in the U.S. or keeping it in Puerto Rico or anything.
Yeah, and then I think that also will keep the Puerto Rico from being the money laundering center. I think that could be the advantage of Puerto Rico.
Okay. So you're seeing, do you see that Puerto Rico could turn into a kind of Singapore or a kind of Switzerland off the U.S. mainland instead of like a Cayman Islands or a BVI or something like that?
Yeah, I think they have the similar geography location, and I think they have the good protection by the United States, so they could have some potential or advantage to become a hub of.
Okay. So if we're talking about starting up like shell companies out of Puerto Rico, and if we're talking about maybe doing what the OECD is worried about as far as the base erosion profit sharing and things like that, you're saying that Puerto Rico would be a difficult jurisdiction to do that in?
Yes, or depends on the United States government position.
Okay.
Maybe United States want to cooperating more with the OECD or not. Okay. Depends.
Oh, so the U.S. may not agree with the OECD's plans.
Maybe, because the United States have stronger power.
Well, and the U.S. still uses GAAP, whereas you guys have just recently moved to IFRS.
Yes.
So, there's definitely that. So what you're saying is that there could be some elements of that.
Yeah, and I think if more people immigrate to Puerto Rico, and perhaps Puerto Rico will be another state of the United States in the future, and then maybe have bigger sovereignty, bigger administrative power to govern the place.
So this might very well be the next move to turn Puerto Rico into the 51st state. If it's doing so well, it will be incorporated into the U.S.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I would say that. I think the Guam Island has a similar position compared to Puerto Rico, but I think Puerto Rico has a better position than the Guam Island, because Guam Island is more like a military base.
Okay, well
due to the location.
Let's talk about that for a second. Competition, right? What happens when you have encroaching and higher tax rates? There's going to be a jurisdiction that's going to compete and saying, well, I can do better than that. And they're going to do something like what Puerto Rico just did. Now, you know, Guam is a lot closer to Asia. Guam is a lot more used to having, you know, Chinese, Japanese, Korean tourists and whatnot that come to Guam. You know, what if Guam does this? Let's also, you know, move to Asia. In China's situation, okay, what if you're looking towards an environment where people, again, how Paul Gamble said in one of our previous interviews, that he said Chinese people feel a little uneasy about keeping their money on the mainland, keeping it off the mainland, and they want to know where they can keep their money, where it can be safe. And what if, you know, there's something similar that, for instance, Taiwan strikes with China. It says, hey, listen, you want residency here? You want to pay taxes here? 4%, 3%, 2%, come here, invest. Could that be something that, you know, could we be seeing something like that happening with Taiwan? And if that's so, would we be looking at a similar model where Puerto Rico would be turning into the next Singapore of the US? Could we be looking at Taiwan becoming the next Singapore of Asia because of an agreement like this?
That's a very interesting question, but I doubt that Taiwan could be the haven for wealthy Chinese to put their money in.
Okay.
Yeah, even though we lower the tax rate, we have a more favorable incentive bill for wealthy Chinese people. Because due to the political issue, you see that we have student protests in March. Most of Taiwanese are concerned with the mainland China intention of reunite the Taiwanese, so I think we have some concern.
You think politics will get in the way of what otherwise could be seen as maybe a logical solution to bring a lot of money to Taiwan?
I think even though for Puerto Rico, I think now China competing against the United States. So if they want to park the money out of China, if they really will choose the Puerto Rico as the top priority, I suspect, because the political issue
you again doubt
that they perhaps will park the money to like Switzerland or the France.
Do we have a neighbor in China that looks poised to do something like this? I mean, are we looking at Mongolia? You know, just throw a wild card out there. Vietnam. Is there any countries around China that are poised to say, hey, listen, we can be your Puerto Rico. We can basically really create favorable conditions for your investment here. We want you to get residence here. Is there any country around Asia that's making a move like that? The only idea that I can think of is that Malaysia has a very aggressive immigration program where if you buy a house and you put about 500,000, I believe it's 500,000 ringgit, which is about 1 million renminbi, in the bank, you can get a 10-year visa to stay there in Malaysia. So outside of Malaysia, is there any other countries that are doing a Puerto Rico, or I guess you could say Malaysia, style move to really just lock in you know, the capital? And they want people to have their business operations and their investments in their country and not, you know, in China or in the mainland US or anything like that.
I think there's a lot of points we can talk about this question. I think this question is very interesting. But in the past, or like 300 or 400 or 500 years ago, there are already a lot of Chinese. They took the boat and they sailed to the Malaysia or Indonesia. So there's already a lot of overseas Chinese now living in Malaysia or Thailand. So I think in the past we already have, and they're doing good, so good in business or commercial. So even though they try to have more power in the politics, but the local Malaysian or Indonesia, they try to avoid the influence by the overseas Chinese, because Chinese are still the community. That's the first.
So there might be an opposite dynamic. They actually might want to limit the ability to have overseas Chinese to be coming into Vietnam and Malaysia and other places, so that they can it's almost like a protectionist mechanism to make sure that they control their own economy.
But for the low cost or for the lower production cost perspective, I think there are already some Taiwanese manufacturer move to Malaysia or Indonesia. So because now the labor cost or the land cost increasing nowadays in mainland China, so some of the Taiwanese manufacturer pursuing the low cost, now they're already deploying in Malaysia. So I think for low production perspective, I think maybe some Chinese businessmen will consider that to relocate to Malaysia. That could be the opportunity. But I think for Chinese who want to be immigrant to overseas, they will look up to the developed country rather than developing country. Now China already kind of developing country, so I think they will choose the developed country rather than the developing country. So I don't think that Malaysia will be very attractive for those Chinese.
I can offer an anecdote to that. When I was in Malaysia, there was an article in the newspaper one day, and the article in the newspaper said that we are pretty much offering citizenship. All you have to do is come to our office and you can have Malaysian citizenship. But when you actually went to the government office, there was a little bit of a difference as far as they wanted to know that you came from a developed country, and they said, oh, you want Malaysian citizenship? So fine, we'll give it out like candy. Unfortunately, if you came from a country like Bangladesh or something like that, the doors weren't as open towards getting that Malaysian citizenship. So I can see the dynamic you're talking about as far as wanting to move to a developed country, or having a developing country want to have developed country passport holders and things like that to come into their country and become residents and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I agree, because now who are the Chinese have the ability to be the immigrant? I think they already have money. They want their next generation to have a better life or better well-being, welfare. So I think that's why they will choose the different countries.
So instead of choosing yield and being able to reap a massive return in more of a rough neighborhood like Bangladesh or Kyrgyzstan or Africa or something like that, there's much more desire to just want to go to a developed country and develop their business from there. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So, but I think if Malaysia want to be the hub or want to be the place where to attract the more investment or immigrants, I think they're competing with Singapore or Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is losing their advantage nowadays, because now they have more influence by Beijing government. So I think they're losing. And even Hong Kongese are upset by the Chinese immigrant.
Okay.
So you can see from news that the Chinese mom
I'm familiar with those stories.
Carry the kids and pee in the street, surrounded. So I think now the Hong Kong losing the position. I think, but Singapore has a very strategic approach to attract the immigrant from developed country. They want a professional. They want people who equipped with the advanced skills or the.
Well, Singapore wants to be number one in everything. They're perfectionists.
Yeah, so they have a very strategic approach to attract those immigrants. So they are now access or open the door to everyone who want to immigrate.
Right.
So they have their choice, their priority.
Interesting.
Yes. That's my opinion.
Very interesting. So I would like to ask you about Bitcoin.
Yes.
We covered it before. We talked about Bitcoin implications having to do with FATCA and how Bitcoin would be priced. And you were actually correct when you said that it wasn't going to be a day-to-day price. It was going to be an instant-by-instant application of the pricing. And that's actually what happened in the US since they classified it as something to be filed under capital gains. And you would have to register the purchase price and the difference between what you bought it and you sold it and the profit in between and this and that. Now, I want to talk about that because you know, a lot of people in the world are talking about, you know, how is Bitcoin going to be taxed. I think this was kind of like a rough year for Bitcoin taxation. Things are still a little not very clear at all, and I think it's going to take some time. So I wanted to ask you about, where do you see the Bitcoin taxation trend going? How are Bitcoins going to be taxed? Is it going to be every country for its own? Is there going to be some sort of unified standard, perhaps? And the thing I want to ask, as far as Bitcoin is having more reporting requirements in the U.S. Has started it. Taiwan very well might follow the U.S. as far as the U.S. example for taxing. And if that's the case, there's going to be more of a legal hurdle to clear and more of a technological hurdle to clear in order to have more people having a more mass acceptance of Bitcoin. However, I think that legally there can be some things done, and I think technologically there could be something done as far as an app that could automatically record, this is how much you paid for your Bitcoin, this is how much the price was when you sold it, this is the difference, and it can create an automatic CSV or XML file that you can easily bring to the tax authorities at the end of the year, thereby solving the problem. So I don't see that these tax rules created a big problem, but the question in everyone's mind is, how is Bitcoin going to be taxed?
I think that's the good question, and actually now that there's a lot of news, yeah, you're right, a lot of news about Bitcoin from the trading perspective or taxation perspective. And I think the Central Bank of Taiwan, they noticed that, or they pay more attention to Bitcoin, and they warn the Taiwanese people that Bitcoin is not really a legal currency, so be careful using the Bitcoin.
So is it going to be classified more as like a property, like a holding?
Yeah, still, I think that is still
like that?
Still, and we see that as a property. And I think they now won't issue any regulation or to govern this kind of trading, Bitcoin trading.
Okay.
So for now, if the Taiwanese people want to buy or sell the Bitcoin, if there any issue or any dispute, I think will be governed by civil law of Taiwan.
Okay.
Not a particular Bitcoin regulation, but if someday there gonna be Bitcoin regulation, I think that will see that as a currency, and if that's the legally acceptable currency, and then I think we have a better third-party certification to see your buy-sell record, and there's some insurance company will secure your currency position.
Technological solutions, insurance solutions.
Yeah, then if that's resolved, I think that the public or the government will accept the Bitcoin as another option of the currency.
Okay.
I think now I see from my perspective, I think that's still a lot of steps to be taken towards that goal. So I don't see. So nowadays, I think even Taiwan Tech Authority or Central Bank of Taiwan will see that as a product. I think they now studying, so they're gonna release a regulation or warning to see how they tax the Bitcoin. Because we see some news from Taiwan Tech Authority to see it's a product, so you have the people who host the Bitcoin will be taxed for capital gain. Okay.
So it seems like it's going to be more rules-based rather than principles-based, as far as in this situation you tax as such, instead of the U.S. taxpayers got in for a little bit of surprise this year. If they filed early and they didn't wait until the very end, they had no idea how to report their Bitcoin income on the 2014 form. So it was just basically principles-based and just making an educated guess. So you don't think that Taiwan is going to do that, and they're going to come out with clear guidelines as far as, and you're expecting that it's probably going to be in the realm of treating it as capital gains?
Yeah, but now that's their position that is treating that as a capital gain. Because they see the Bitcoin as a property.
Just for our viewers, how much is the capital gains tax here in Taiwan?
And for resident, depends on the resident tax rate, right?
Oh, okay.
So corporate will be taxed on 70%.
Okay.
For individual, 17.
Oh, 17. Okay.
Yeah, that's for corporate buyer. But for individual, that depends on if 5 or 12 or 20 or 30 or 40.
Got it.
Yeah, so, but for non-resident, I think will be taxed on 20%.
Good stuff. Good
Yes,
stuff.
I think that how they trick tax. But for VAT, I think that's the really tough job for them to tax the VAT.
So it's going to be difficult implementation to do that. So they might just go the capital gains route. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,